Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Pete Souza back with us. We'll chat with Pete in just a second. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Pete Souza was the chief official White House photographer for the entire tenure of the presidency of Barack Obama. He is the author of several books, including the #1 New York Times bestsellers Obama, An Intimate Portrait, and Shade, A Tale of Two Presidents. A photojournalist since the late 1970s, Pete was also an official White House photographer during the Reagan administration, a freelance photographer for Life and National Geographic, and the Washington-based natural national photographer for the Chicago Tribune. A documentary about his work at the White House, The Way I See It, was nominated for an Emmy, and its premiere was the highest-rated non-news, non-live program in MSNBC history. He is a professor emeritus at Ohio University's School of Visual Communications, and in 2021, Pete was inducted into the International Photography Hall of Fame. Pete, welcome back into the back room.
Thanks for having me.
So you spent years in the White House photographing Presidents Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama. Before we get to the shocking demolition of the East Wing, just on a macro level, what do you think when you see what Donald Trump has done overall to the People's House?
I don't even know where to begin. The ornateness, for instance, of the Oval Office. Well, let me first say this. Every president makes some changes, does some renovations. The Oval Office is different for the decoration in the Oval Office is different for every president. But it's usually a different carpeting, the drapes are a little different. They might choose particular paintings to hang in the Oval Office. Or, Reagan had a couple of Remington bronzes with horses involved. That's normal. What's not normal is taking cheap gold ornate stuff from Home Depot or something and just spreading it all over the Oval Office. It looks like his office at Trump Tower, not where the President of the United States holds meetings with world leaders. So that's one thing. To completely demolish a wing of the White House without any input from the historical committees, from the GSA, the General Services Administration, from Congress. I mean, money is supposed to be appropriated from Congress for any changes at the White House. And he just blows through all that stuff. So, the whole thing has been shocking to me.
Well, I totally get the analogy to his corner office at Trump Tower, but there seems to be, on some level at least, something else at play here. Like, it harkens back to Saddam Hussein's imperial palace, his vision of what strongmen's chambers are like, what their palaces are like. And that's what it seems like to me, like he's trying to turn the White House from the people's house into some autocratic palace.
No, totally. I agree with you there 100%. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, it looks like...
Or a whorehouse. The whorehouse.
Somebody had some photos of some of the insides of Jeffrey Epstein's house where the similarities between some of the rooms in that house versus some of the rooms in the White House now. And then you have the private study, which is a little room adjacent to the Oval Office, where previous presidents might have a TV set or, a computer set up. It's now a merch room for him. Like all his MAGA merchandise is now in that room, and which he shows off to world leaders. It's just the weirdest thing. I mean, it's we are not. Our country is not a kingdom. It's supposed to be a democracy where the executive branch is one of three branches of the government, not the ruling entity. And sometimes I wonder if he's actually ever looked at the Constitution. It's like he does want to rule like a king. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah. I'm sort of torn between the literal definition of that versus is he just being the same guy that sat in that corner office when he was at Trump Tower? He's essentially the king of the company. He's the king of his business. Nobody tells him what to do. Everybody's terrified of him. He never had to ask permission for anything, even bankers. He dictated the rules. And so now he finds himself in Washington again. And again, he has to work with a Congress, has to work with a court system. That's not what he's used to. It's not what he wants. And so I vacillate between thinking, is he really trying to destroy democracy and be a king? Or is he just being the same Donald Trump he's been for decades and decades, except he has boundaries and limitations that he never had before, and he just continues to not accept them,
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think he wanted to be that in his first term as well, but he actually had a few different people that, tried to impose guardrails on him. Yeah. I mean, if you read Maggie Haberman's book on Trump, he's done this his whole life.
Yeah.
He's done this his whole life. He couldn't do it the first term because he did have people that would say, John Kelly, no, you can't do that. That's not legal. He's not hired any of those people this time around. He's only hired people that will acquiesce to whatever he wants to do, much as you say, he's done his whole life. And you can, you read Maggie Haberman's book. I mean, it's been a while since I read that book, but it's like, this is the way he's operated his entire life.
Yeah.
No guardrails.
Yeah. And it's also why he loves executive orders, because that's what he used to do in the corner office at Trump. Just somebody sticks a piece of paper in front of him, and he signs it like the boss. He just wants to be the boss.
Right.
So speaking of the ballroom, over the weekend, Trump said that one of the reasons why the ballroom has to be so big is because it's going to be where the inauguration is.
I was just saying this to my wife.
And I'm watching this and I'm going, I'm scratching my head. Yeah. And like, what inauguration is he referring to?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he thinks he's going to be inaugurated again, or, he thinks that he alone can move the inauguration from the U.S. Capitol, to the Trump ballroom, because that's what it will be called, and it will be emblazoned in gold. Mm-hmm. Those words, Donald J. Trump Ballroom.
Visible from any camera angle.
Visible inside and outside. And then he also said, something about, it's taking a lot longer because there's going to be bulletproof windows, and it's going to be drone proof. Mm. So, I guess our enemies can't, drone strike the ballroom.
Yeah. Unlike all the other windows in the White House,
right?
Which aren't drone proof or bulletproof, perhaps.
Right.
And so, speaking of the East Wing itself, I'm sure you have so many memories. What comes to mind when you think back on the days of Reagan and Obama and shooting in that wing, spending time in that wing?
I mean, let me set the stage a little bit. I mean, I spent, the President of the United States works in the West Wing. And that's where I spent the majority of my time, the Oval Office, Cabinet Room, Situation Room, etc. The East Wing is kind of the First Lady's domain, and but also includes the offices that essentially plan all the events at the White House, whether they're events on the South Lawn. I mean, these are presidential events, the South Lawn, East Room, Rose Garden, any of the events that take place at the White House. The planning of those events originates in the East Wing. My personal presence in the East Wing was, if I wasn't going to walk over there to see some of my friends that worked in the East Wing, that worked for the First Lady or the Legislative Affairs Office, or the military aides had their office there. The social office had their office there. When the President of the United States would go over there, both Reagan and Obama, it was more often to use the family theater. The family theater was maybe a 88-seat theater that had a movie camera, but also the ability to project live TV. So the Reagans would watch movies in there very often. President Obama used it for screenings of new films. Whether it was we screened Lincoln, the movie Lincoln there. There was a documentary on the Tuskegee Airmen that was screened there. Films like that. And it'd be an event. Like, people that were in the movie would come to the screening, and there'd be, refreshments. And then the Super Bowl would always be projected in that room, and members of Congress would come, and so on and so forth. So those are the memories that I have. Also, at Christmas time, I mean, this was, to set the stage a little bit, this was also the main entrance for people going on public tours of the White House. They would go through security outside the East Wing, and then they would enter the doors from the East Wing. And they would walk down this long hallway, and there would be photographs from past presidencies hanging along that hallway, including some of mine from the Reagan years. And then at Christmas time, that was like the entrance to Christmas. I mean, it would be decked out with trees and decorations. And so those are the kind of the memories I have. The one in particular, I think when we screened Lincoln, Daniel Day-Lewis played Lincoln. Steven Spielberg directed that film. He was there. And I got to sit in the back of the room and watch Lincoln with everyone. And there's Daniel Day-Lewis. He was Lincoln. I mean, he brought Lincoln alive. And I remember at the end of the screening, President Obama invited the cast up to the White House residence and brought Daniel Day-Lewis into the Lincoln bedroom. Now, mind you, I had just seen his performance as Lincoln. He was Lincoln. He was Lincoln. And at one point, there's a copy of the Gettysburg Address signed by Lincoln under bulletproof glass in the Lincoln bedroom. And at one point, Daniel Day-Lewis was looking at the Gettysburg Address by himself. And I mean, chills just went up my spine, because it was as if Lincoln himself was looking at that Gettysburg Address.
And, people should definitely check out your photos from a lot of the stuff you've mentioned. I mean, they're great photos of Ron and Nancy Reagan in the theater, Obama watching the Super Bowl, I think in 2009. You mentioned different plaques. Like, what? This may seem like a dumb question. It's really a rhetorical question, but like, when you see what Trump has just done with the plaques under the, I mean, my head explodes.
Yeah.
Everybody's head explodes. But like for someone like you, like it just, I can't even imagine what goes through your mind when you see him doing
What
stuff.
what I don't understand is what goes through his mind.
Well,
Like, okay, it was bad enough that he put those portraits up in the first place, like the White House colonnade outside, and then had the third grade mentality instead of putting a picture of, Joe Biden to put a picture of the auto pen, which, by the way, every single president, including Donald Trump, utilizes for, different thing for, you can't, otherwise the president would spend literally every minute of every day signing shit, right? You can't, so the auto pen, every president uses it. Like what kind of mentality would provoke someone to do that? So those hung for quite a while without any plaques. And then he puts these plaques up, which is like, again, it's like a third grade mentality. And it's all about denigrating the people that he doesn't like politically, Obama, Biden, and then like claims that, Reagan thought highly of Trump, for instance, as part of the plaque. Like, who does that? But there's like, what? I mean, I hope when he dies that somebody does an autopsy of his brain and tells us why, why his brain does such crazy shit.
Well, Pete, this may come as a shock, but I think when they do that autopsy, there's not going to be a brain, because I have this theory that there is some life form in some other planetary system, and they have sent the entire Trump family here to destroy us. And so if you cut them open, that's why he has no human emotions. It's like the shark from Jaws. You cut Trump open, and like there's beer cans, small fish, pennies. He's not a human being. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. I think he's a sociopath. You said third grader. I agree with you on some level. On another level, I think it's an insult to third graders.
Well, it is an insult to third graders. Okay.
Yeah. I think the thing that's hard for people like you and I and most of the country to understand is that while we all have some insecurities, right? This man has such crippling insecurities that no matter how much he achieves, he can never be happy. The only way he gets happy is by mashing into the ground anyone who threatens him on any level. That's the only thing that can explain, like, you're in the White House twice. Only 45 other people have achieved that. You've escaped every prosecution that existed on your inauguration day. You're not only a billionaire coming into the White House, but through your crypto scams and all that other shit, you have made more money, and your family has enriched themselves more than anyone could have possibly ever imagined. You have anything in the world you could ever want. And he's resorting to this third grade shit of like, I mean, I just had Ron Reagan Jr. on here again a couple of weeks ago, and as you know, his dad did not like Trump.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard explanation as to who he is and what he does. But on the other hand, it's actually quite simple. He's just a sociopath with crippling insecurities.
Yeah. Either that or he's got like the same worm that RFK Jr. had, and it's still in his head, maybe. It's crawling around,
Maybe crawled out of Bobby's head, up Trump's sleeve. They're pretty close now.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like I may not vote for any 2028 Democratic presidential primary candidate unless they promise to knock down the Trump ballroom and rebuild the East Wing exactly as it was. And there's a lot of talk about that too, that's something that candidates might need to address. What are your feelings?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that well, my hope actually is it doesn't get built.
The ballroom. Yeah, you might be right about that.
That there's enough resistance that it doesn't get off the ground. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. But so that's kind of my hope. But yeah, no, I it's at least the monstrosity of the what he's designing. There's no way that can exist. And I would agree. I would I might be with you on that. I hadn't really thought about it, but I might be with you.
I mean, it's a way for someone to rise above the pack, right? I mean, think about how angry Democrats are, even independents. And you come out there and say, hey, day one, that's the first thing I'm going to do is get a crane, a bulldozer, whatever, and set those guys loose on that ballroom and rebuild the East Wing exactly as it was. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be an interesting thing. Moving to another unconscionable thing he did, renaming the Kennedy Center. From a historical perspective, from just a human decency perspective, understanding who that building is named after, how that individual died. Like just, and when you have a Kennedy in your cabinet, which might just be his ultimate FU,
Yeah, I mean, what's next? The Lincoln Memorial?
Yeah.
The Washington Monument Memorial? I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
No. But it's nice to see all the cancellations that are happening. It's like Rick Wilson with his Everything Trump Touches Dies book and hashtag. It's like the Kennedy Center is going to die a slow death. The question is, will it come back after Trump is gone?
I think so. I am probably more optimistic about that than I am the whole ballroom scenario. I think the Kennedy, his name will come off of it. There's no question.
This is an interesting question I have for you, because I have this debate with friends all the time and people on the show, and that is, there will be a day where he's not president anymore, and very likely there'll be a Democratic president, and very likely perhaps next year a Democratic House, maybe even a Senate one day, if not next year. And as much as he has attempted to destroy this country's institutions, its norms, its boundaries, and has succeeded on a great deal of those efforts, can that be overturned? Can we get back, once he's gone, through executive orders, through other legislation perhaps? You've been in the White House, you worked for different presidents, you see presidents come and go, you see administrations change, you've seen policies change. Do you feel like this country can kind of be like, all right, that was a weird fucking 10 years or for 14 years or whatever, and get back to some semblance of normalcy? Or do you think there's been real long-term or perhaps permanent damage done to this country?
I mean, I don't know. I'm the right person to answer that question, other than, I was alive during the Kennedy assassination, during Watergate, during 9/11, and we did come back from all of those. Mm-hmm. This is different, though. I think there's a lasting damage. I mean, I guess one of the things that I've thought about is, will the world trust us again? More than anything, that we somehow allowed somebody like this. We elected this guy. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of votes, and what does our word stand for? If Barack Obama signs a Paris Climate Treaty, and then there's a possibility that it's for naught. Well, it is for naught now because he pulled out of it, along with millions of, not millions, but dozens and dozens of other good things that we did with other leaders around the world. And suddenly, what are people going to think? Well, this could happen again. Mm-hmm. Maybe the new guy coming in is going to restore some semblancy to, or not restore some normalcy to world affairs. But, the country elected this guy twice. They could elect another guy like him. Mm-hmm. So I think that's my biggest concern is will our allies ever trust us again?
No, you're a good person to have asked that question, because I think that's exactly, in my mind, the number one problem that we have is that you can't, once a trust is eroded, it's very difficult in a friendship, in a marriage, in politics, in an administration. It's very difficult to get that back, because the world doesn't see us anymore as that rock. That's one thing the world can count on, is that America will always stand for democracy. It'll always stand for the rule of law. It'll always stand for helping people throughout the world, providing aid.
But how it, and also how can people in our country be so gullible to, like, I get the first time around why he got elected. I get it. But to be so gullible to elect him again?
Was it gullible, or is it just hate and racism?
I mean, I think it's well, I don't know. I wish I could answer that. I don't know what it is. I don't know how people got sucked in to thinking that, okay, all those lies he's telling us, he's actually going to do. Like, what? I don't know what it is. I think it's a combination of factors.
Well, it's like you said, the first time is one thing. The second time, knowing he was a convicted felon, knowing it's like, what
this
else?
Is who you want leading our country?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
More people than last time. That's the crazy thing.
It's insane to me. It's just insane.
That's not a good place to be when you're like in Europe thinking like, all right, are they going to be insane again? Insanity is not something you want to bank on, In our final couple of minutes here, in terms of Trump's first year of this second term, it's been a freaking roller coaster. There's been some really hideous things. As we draw to a close on this year, what are your biggest takeaways from what we've seen these past 12 months? And what's your biggest concern going into 26?
Well, I mean, I think that it's surprising to me how gutless members of Congress can be. They have lost their sanity. Mm-hmm. Because without them, he couldn't be doing a lot of the things he's doing. Mm. I'm specifically referring, obviously, to members of the Republican Party in Congress. They're, you're talking about, you had Ron Reagan on. I mean, President Reagan, and the Republican Party, I mean, you may have completely disagreed with their policies, but they had some sane leaders, and I mean, I go through my old photos, and I ran across a photo of Howard Baker, former Senator Howard Baker. That he wouldn't put up with this bullshit.
No, Jack Kemp, Alan Simpson,
yes,
Bob Dole, like these guys were.
What happened?
They're like Bernie Sanders by comparison. Those guys are gone. They're gone. They've been replaced by either cult members or just terrified cowards.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that's sort of surprised me.
That's changing a little bit, right? Have you noticed?
Changing a little bit, and then I don't again, I'm not a political analyst, but I've read that a lot of pundits are saying that once the deadline passes for whether you can run for Congress or not,
right,
and members of Congress know they're not going to have an opponent
Yep.
in their primary, then they're just going to that's when the floodgates are going to open and they're going to suddenly, grow some balls.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse my language.
It's very possible, considering that's
I hope
the one
that's
thing
true.
Yeah. Well, I try to remain optimistic, and I'm watching what I'm seeing. This whole Marjorie Taylor Greene thing is utterly fascinating to me.
It is.
She's incredibly smart, very calculating, has her finger on the pulse. I'm not one who's discounting her or dismissing her. I'm thinking she sees something that perhaps the rest of us haven't quite seen fully yet. And so she's an interesting one to watch. But there's starting to be a little crack in that dam. And it's quite possible he is a wounded animal. This Epstein thing could swallow him up this year. I really do think there's going to be some devastating revelations coming out. I mean, it's obvious why he's fighting like an animal to keep these full files private. And so this could be a really interesting year, specifically to the point you're raising. Is this the inflection point year where Republicans in Congress are like, we're either going to die in November next year or we got to do something. And he's killing us. So seems like an easy choice to make. But
well, I think they're going to die no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of them are trying to look. The Democrats will win the House. There's no question. The question is by how many seats, and I think there are a number of Republican members of Congress that realize they're on the bubble on whether they're ousted or not. And I think some of those will survive because they finally, grow some balls and speak out, and they may survive, the election. But that's not going to be true for all of them.
no.
I mean, there's no way the Republicans win the House. There's no way. It will not happen.
No, I happen to think it's going to be a bloodbath, but
Yeah.
I've been wrong before. Pete, I love your insights and perspective. Thanks for coming on, and do come back again.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay. Yep.
Happy New Year.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.